how you all doing? Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much, first of all, for coming back to my channel. I really appreciate it. I have noted quite a few new subscribers. It means that you're interested in the subject that I'm fixing into, some of the conversations that are going around, and maybe to hear my opinions or to get some details that perhaps are not published in the media or, as succinctly as I would as a researcher. My name is Maureen Wangati-Nyakbo, and I am an evaluation specialist by profession, that I am a general citizen with interests and using my skills to try to make sense of what's going on in the world. Yes, and this time we are continuing with the subject of the Rwanda migration treaty that has been signed with the UK government. And this is the issue. A treaty was signed to quote-unquote strengthen the Rwanda migration partnership with the UK. And it was signed actually on Tuesday, the 5th of December of 2023, with his counterpart, Foreign Minister Dr. Vincent Biruta, strengthening the UK and Rwanda's migration and economic development partnership and directly addressing the concerns of the Supreme Court. You see, what happened is that the Supreme Court of the UK said that it was unlawful to relocate asylum seekers to Rwanda because they deemed that the country was unsafe. UK top court said that a plan to send migrants to Rwanda would be illegal. So basically, the government wants to override the Supreme Court decision. And it said it will still try to send some migrants on a one-way trip home to Rwanda, even if these migrants are not from Rwanda and they're probably not even from Africa. So there's a dispute right now going on between the UK Parliament under Rishi Sunak and the Supreme Court, and the fact that they have actually signed a treaty with the European Court for Human Rights, all right, on a human rights agreement. So basically what the UK is trying to do at the moment in order to override that and for it to work, to get all the parliamentarians to pass the bill to state that Rwanda is safe for migrants. This is one of the issues that is a requirement for the transfer of migrants to another country. The government says the bill, which must be approved by Parliament, makes clear in UK law that Rwanda is a safe country for asylum seekers. And the new legislation would order British judges and courts to ignore some of the sections of the UK Human Rights Act. It's pegged on the European Court of Human Rights, where last year they actually suspended the flight to repatriate all these illegal migrants who had arrived by boat in the English Channel back to Rwanda.
The UK has canceled its first deportation flight to Rwanda, which was set to take off on Tuesday evening. The flight was canceled after the European Court of Human Rights intervened, ruling that asylum seekers could face a real risk of irreversible harm if they were sent there. The cancellation is seen as a blow to the government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who insisted the deportations would go ahead. DW's Birgit Maas has more from London.
The government has really been put on the spot a lot publicly in the last days. We've had Foreign Secretary Liz Truss saying that it's not the policy that's immoral, but it's actually the people smugglers. It's those people who help other people across the channel in boats, and that costs lives. And she says this is necessary as a deterrent because Britain wants to be seen as a country that is not welcoming to too many people, but they want to create, in an old term that was used years ago, a kind of hostile environment, at least towards what they call illegal migrants. Now, the people that are crossing the channel are people that usually have ties, family ties to Britain, and that they want to come to the UK. But they are hoping basically to make it very, very unattractive, the UK as a country, because people who are coming in this way, who are crossing via the channel, they are now facing the possibility of being deported to Rwanda.
And so now the UK Parliament wants to override this decision ahead of next year's general elections. Basically, it may impact on the Tory government's re-election back into Parliament next year. This is it's basically a very important bill, and it's benchmarking Okay, it's a benchmarking bill. That's what I could say. The asylum seekers, getting the illegal migrants out of the UK is one of the things that the British public have been pushing for. And therefore, Rishi Sunak has to be seen to be continuing with what Boris Johnson started earlier, which was the push to send migrants to a third country, and which was Rwanda. So the question is, why Rwanda? Why Rwanda? What is the composition of these migrants? Who are these migrants, you know? Because I have seen, for example, I have seen on social media, you guys, I have seen on YouTube, some YouTubers saying that the UK is tired of Africans and asking them to leave. But the fact is, if you really look at the data, that is actually to be debated. First of all, you need to understand that Mr. Cleverly, who is the new Home Secretary, who replaced Suella Braverman, Mr. James Cleverly is a product of an African and British couple. His father is British and his mother is Sierra Leonean, although he was born in the UK, so he's a UK citizen. And he's the first black Home Secretary that was elected following the firing of Suella Braverman, who was the previous Home Secretary. Her mother was Hindu, Tamil, Mauritian descent. Mauritius is part of Africa. And her father was a Goan who was formerly an India in Kenya. So basically, Suella Braverman, the person who just stepped down, or should I say was fired as Home Secretary, she's married to a British husband. But Suella herself, okay, her background is actually from Mauritian, Hindu, and Kenyan Indian, okay? And then we know that Rishi Sunak also, he's also got some Tanzanian and Ugandan heritage from his parents, as well as Indian, okay? So it was quite interesting to see how that Home Office position was replaced by another person who has African descent from Sierra Leone and from Britain, who is James Cleverly. Quite an interesting thing. And in fact, being the first Home Secretary, he was a Foreign Secretary at one point, but now he's the Home Secretary and the first black one. So there's been quite a big change in the UK Parliament, actually, which all started with the Liz Truss government that actually hired the greatest number of black and Indian cabinet ministers, you know, within the Parliament, about 6 of them, half a dozen. They say half a dozen, call it 6, just about 6. Out of the maybe over 300 people, 6 of them, yeah, in very high positions with Liz Truss. But as you remember, Liz Truss resigned after like about a month. She didn't stay there very long because of her economic policies, which are right now actually seeming to be making sense in some ways, because she was all about, you know, reducing taxes to those who are rich, giving them a break, and you know, maybe giving them other kinds of things. So let me not divert, guys. Let me not digress from what I was talking about right now. There's just so much information that it's difficult to put it all in one video. But what is important for you to understand is that right now there is a bill in Parliament, in the UK Parliament, that seeks to quash the UK Supreme Court judgment that it was unlawful to send asylum seekers who have reached the shores of the UK to a third country, because the European law forbids it. It forbids it, any sort of transfer to any third country. In fact, they say any third country. But on that note, the UK Parliament has been ordered by Rishi Sunak to ignore parts of the European human rights law. And so this is a very complicated matter, people. Very, very complicated matter. How to get these illegal migrants who are coming on small boats to the UK. Number of small boat arrivals in UK 2023. Let's go to the Channel Crossing Tracker and see how many people are reported there, because you know you have to be careful about your sources of information. This is Migration Watch UK. How many people are illegally crossing the channel? At the beginning of 2023, the Home Office forecast that crossings could reach 85,000. Yeah? Such a huge number of crossings would be roughly equivalent to the total arrivals by small boat in 2018 to the end of 2022, adding to the current total. This upper forecast would equate to small boat arrivals to the population of the city of Oxford. So they say that in 2023 there have been 34% fewer crossings in 2023 than in 2022 September, you know, but that means that there's been a reduction by about a third. Okay, so we can say in 2023 there are 29,000. 2022, there were 45,000. 2021, 28,000, you know. So 2028 to present, about 113,000. Okay, so the numbers are large. Okay, these are illegal migrants, illegally crossing the channel. And each year, like the past 2 years, has been about 30,000 this year and about 49,000 last year. So if you want to look at the 2-year average, you're looking at about, 80,000 people coming by small boat. So Rwanda itself, its capacity currently is only 200 so far. That means that they can actually accommodate 200 migrants, which is less than a plane full load of migrants, illegal migrants coming from the UK. But they do say that literally they can accommodate an infinite number, because you see there's a figure, there's money tied to each immigrant who is coming into the UK. And they get a lot of benefits, okay? Yeah, they get a lot of protection and a lot of benefits. So if you're an illegal migrant coming into the UK, just get on the plane and go to Rwanda, because you're going to be treated like royalty. When you get to Rwanda, you'll have like everything at your disposal. And then over there, they can process you and decide whether you remain or whether you come back or what happens. Yeah, whether you're able to be transferred to a third country. So it's nothing like what we used to have, like in the Dadaab and Kakuma camps in Kenya. This one is going to be run by the UK government. And to be very honest, it looks so comfortable. Wow, It sounds like they're going to have a really good time in Rwanda, yeah? Their comfort has definitely been, put at the very top. Healthcare, food, 3 meals a day. They are going to be allowed in and out of the camp. They'll be given a small stipend. They'll be given training, SME training, language training, Kinyarwanda, French, English. So they'll be given housing. There's even provisions for laundry, for baby changing facilities, for healthcare facilities in Rwanda. So I tell you what, these illegal immigrants being sent to Rwanda, the plan, if you go to the gov.uk website and you look at the treaty, the provision for asylum partnership, which is under the uk.gov website, you will be shocked at all the provisions, and protections that are being offered by this partnership with Rwanda. It's huge. It's huge. And I can see that they will definitely be much more comfortable in Rwanda compared to the UK. That's a fact. This is true. I think they're trying to make it look as attractive as possible, so that, when the first batch of immigrants get to Rwanda, everybody will be like, wow, I want to go to Rwanda. I want to go to Rwanda, Forget about the UK where I'm freezing. Let me go to Rwanda, yeah? So basically what happened is that James cleverly actually took a trip and went down to meet with his Rwandese counterpart in Rwanda ahead of the bill that they hope is going to be passed in the parliament. But what we need to find out is this. What is the composition of those who are crossing with the boat? Those 100,000 who are crossing with the channel. What is the composition of those illegal migrants to the UK? Okay, what is it, basically? So let's go there. There was a chart. There we go. Yeah, that's a chart. Small boat arrivals by nationality, right there. And this is from the Migration Observatory. So, you'll be shocked, guys. You'll be shocked. The first group, Iranians, 20.7%. That is by far the largest group, which are almost 20,000. How many are they here? Yeah, it's almost 20,000 of them if you look at that chart. Then we have Albania, and with 14%, 14.9%, almost 15%. So 20 plus 15 is how much? 35%. Aha, good. Then we have Iraq, another 14.7%. Rounded off to 15%, we get what? 35 plus 15 is 50%. So the top 3 countries of small boat arrivals by nationality is Iranian, Albanian, Iraqi. Okay? The next 3, Afghanistan, 13%. Added to the 50% comes to approximately 63%. Yeah? And then you add Syria, and that makes it 70%. The top 5 countries, Iran, Albania, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. This information is from Migration Observatory, and it looks at selected nationalities 2018 to March 2023. Okay? So this is between 2018 and 2023. Iran, Albania, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Now, what do we see as the least common denominator amongst all of these? All of these people are Islamic. These are Muslim migrants, okay? Majority of them, yeah. And then let's look at the last few. After that, we have the Eritreans, who are 6%. I told you that Iranians are 20%. Eritreans, who are from Africa, are 6.3%. And Sudan, 4.4%. Vietnam, 2.3%, and India, 1.7%. But we also know that internally displaced people in Africa, Sudanese make up the highest proportion, about 20% of those. And there are about 36 million internally displaced people within Africa. Of those, 20% are Sudanese. Eritreans also make a very big number. So that 4.4% from Sudan that are crossing the channel and 6.3% are just a drop in the ocean, really, literally a drop, a speck in the ocean compared to the number that actually remain within Africa. And then the last group are Indian, 1.7%. So we're looking at Iran, Albania, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. And this is the reason why the UK wants to send these migrants to Africa, because of the problem of cultural clash and also religious problems. You know, I was listening to the radio the other day. Actually, there was a discussion, I believe, I don't remember which specific channel. I usually listen to the BBC. It was a talk about migration. And the responses by the British are that they are concerned that they are soon going to be replaced. White British might soon become the minority in their own country. And the reason is those men, actually 18 years and over, who are coming from these 5 countries, these Muslim countries. There's a lot of people coming here. And the question is, I always wonder to myself as well, why is it that these illegal migrants decide to migrate to the UK and not, for example, to Dubai or, you know, Kuwait and those countries, Oman, Saudi Arabia, that are, you know, Muslim and they're Islamic and they have a lot of money and they're comfortable. A lot of British, white British are also, you know, going to seek jobs in those countries. So the question is, why do they actually come here? Yeah. So I want to correct my fellow YouTubers and let them know that actually the UK is not saying Africans go home. That's not what they're saying. They are saying we do not want these Muslim migrants in the UK. We don't want, the same thing is happening in Germany, guys. They're also saying the same thing. They don't want these Arab immigrants into, you know, or Arab or Muslim immigrants into Europe, because they're changing the culture and they're also less seen to be or viewed to be less accommodating of their host country's culture and seemingly wanting to change it. And this is the problem. Whether it is a perception, yeah, it's not quantitative, it's not accurate 100%, but there's definitely some truth to that. You see, recently in Ireland, some children were stabbed. In Dublin, 3 children were injured in a stabbing event, okay? And it triggered violent protests and riots. And unfortunately, the mainstream media did not come clear about who actually did the stabbing. You see, if it was just an Irish person or a white person or even a black British person, the media would have even shown the face of this person, you know, who committed these crimes. But because of some laws or some rules about reporting in this country, any reports that may trigger or inflame the public wrath or anger will be kind of shrouded in mystery. So they won't come out clearly to say who did it. However, there are rumors that this was a stabbing that was done by somebody of Algerian descent. Algerian descent means Islamic, and the Irish Prime Minister is pleading with his people not to link the crime with immigrants. Okay? It's a very sensitive issue. Leo Varadkar says it's not right to connect crime to migration in Ireland. It follows a night of rioting in Dublin in the aftermath of a school stabbing. A 5-year-old girl was stabbed in the chest in a serious but stable condition. The riot erupted and people say that they don't feel safe living around these migrants. So what are the migrants themselves saying? Some of them are actually threatening to take their own lives. Okay, I looked at The Guardian and there's a heading there and it says, "I will die. I cannot go back to Africa. Migrants respond to Rwanda removal." So small boat arrivals on the Kent coast have expressed fears that they will be removed from the UK and transferred to Rwanda. He said, if they send me to Rwanda, I will not go. I will die here. I will rather take my life. Jamal, a new arrival from Eritrea, has said. So, do you know how many thousands of miles I've traveled to be here? How long in the desert to reach this point, to be here? We all had to make so many sacrifices. A lot of people lost their lives in the sea. I left my country now. I cannot go back to Africa. So those who are from Africa are saying there's no way they're going back to Africa, to Rwanda, because they did have that option when they were in Africa and they chose not to take it. Yeah, so they decided to cross the deserts and cross the oceans and get to the UK. For them to turn around and send them back to Africa, they're saying is completely unacceptable. And this is what the European courts are also saying. They're saying that that is and something that contravenes human rights. Meanwhile, you know, the Labour government has said that they're just going to scrap that bill. It's not going to happen. But if they're going to come in next year, they are coming in and they're going to scrap that. And by the way, this Rwanda agreement treaty is from now, 2023, until 2027. So it's about 4 years. Yeah, that's the period. So basically, Sunak's bill, which is aiming to block the UK human rights law to save the Rwanda scheme, is going to be a difficult one for him. And already it is threatening to divide parliamentarians in the UK. They're quite divided on the matter. Even within the Tory government, they're quite divided on this matter. Let's wait and see what happens, you know. It's quite an interesting development. And James Cleverly has a very, very important role to play. Let's just see, you know, how he does. And by the way, one of the things that I found out was, so why is Rwanda so keen on hosting these migrants? Why is Rwanda so keen? Basically, in exchange, what the government says is that the deportations are going to deter others from making risky sea crossings. They want to break the business model of the smugglers and the smuggling gangs. Okay, but the critics are saying that it's unethical. But then the government has refused to drop the plan despite the court judgment. Britain and Rwanda have since signed a treaty pledging to strengthen protection for migrants. Okay, so these guys are busy signing treaties. The judges are getting orders to ignore certain sections of the human rights law here. Yeah, I was trying to look for what was in it for Rwanda. One of the benefits to Rwanda from this exchange or from this arrangement is that they will be able to send their most vulnerable asylum seekers from the Congo and from the DRC Congo and from Rwanda to the UK. And I thought that was quite an interesting thing. Really? You know, for those of you who have more information about this, can you please let me know whether this is correct or whether this is not? And finally, I also wanted to answer one of the questions that was asked by one of the people who follow me. Some people ask some very difficult questions, and I'm happy to answer them as long as you're not being, you know, abusive. As long as you're not asking me in an insulting or an abusive way, I'll be more than happy to debate this issue. Like, for example, and we all ask these questions, you know, why should the UK solve the problems of Africa? That's the question that they're asking. The question they should be asking is not really that. They should be asking, why should the UK be solving the problems of Iranians, Albanians, Iraqis, Afghanistanis, and Syrians? Why should the UK be solving the problems of Iran, Albania, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Eritrea, Sudan, Vietnam, and India? Why should the UK be solving those problems? I want you guys to look into the history. What has the relationship of the UK been towards Iran, Albania, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria? What has been the political relationship between the UK and these countries? And what are the foregoing events that have happened between the UK and these countries? What could possibly have displaced these populations and made them want to seek to come here? And let's not forget the other big group of people who are arriving, but not by channel crossings, they're arriving by flights. Okay, but this bill doesn't actually include the flights issue. But those people who are coming in from Ukraine, what is the relationship? What are the foregoing events that have contributed to this situation? I think that we should look at geopolitics and not just hide our heads in the sand. So what I can say is that we can look at the relationship between the UK and Africa, the UK and these countries, and find out what is it that these people are looking for. Why are they desperate? Why are they leaving their homelands to come to this country? Why? Why would they risk their life and their children's lives on the channel crossing? Yeah? They have to pass this bill to state that Rwanda is a safe country. Okay? And Rwanda said that if it comes back as a negative, they're not going to accept those migrants. So Rwanda also has its terms and conditions regardless of that. So in terms of how much money they're going to be getting, yeah, they say that so far the ministers have handed over 140 million pounds to the Rwandan government, but they've declined to disclose how much has been paid out in extra costs in Rwanda and the UK, particularly in series of lengthy court cases. Okay, so 140 million pounds is what has gone to Rwanda so far. And so we're looking at them actually increasing that amount because they have to fund. So we're looking at about over 135,000 asylum seekers are supposed to find sanctuary in Rwanda. The British public needs to see that this is financially viable and also legal and not discriminatory practice. Because you see, the British public, as much as they are not happy to see illegal migrants coming into the country, on the other hand, many people in the UK are also human rights aware, and they would not condone abuse of human rights in any way, the British public themselves. So they would like to see a win-win situation, and I'm one of them. We would like to see a win-win situation where the illegal migrants are sorted, and also, you know, the UK is also protected in its own ways from illegal migrants who come here to commit crimes, and also who come to create disorder and disunity within the country. I think it's important, you know, that if you come in as a migrant, whether legal or illegal, or documented or undocumented, that you respect the culture that you find and that you become a positive member of the society that contributes to its improvement. The only thing that is guaranteed in life is change. So we would like to go to the past, go back to the past where we have a more Puritan, where we have more homogeneous groups of people living side by side, where we have only English people living side by side. But unfortunately, it looks like we may not be going back to that, because even in Africa, the populations are changing. Soon, Africa is also opening up to intercontinental free trade area. So many of those, particularly the immigrants, if they were to go to Rwanda, they would probably end up, you know, getting Rwandese residency, which is one of the conditions. And they will be allowed to travel within the Eastern African area, because the East African passport that allows you to travel to different countries in Eastern Africa, of which Rwanda is a part. So when those illegal migrants, they get their refugee status in Rwanda, and they're able to live in Rwanda and eventually get their residence permits as East African members of the East African society and mix inside Africa. But what does that do in terms of population of Africa? How does that actually impact on the African population, the African demographics? Once you bring in these people from Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Albania, Syria, once these people come into Africa, Eastern Africa, what does that mean for the Eastern African region in terms of population demographics, in terms of security, in terms of economics, in terms of social cohesion and all that? So the UK government needs to be very clear about how it plans to support not just Rwanda, but the region, in case there's any problem that comes about as a result of these illegal immigrants being sent from different parts of different continents into Africa, and for them, you know, becoming citizens of the region. And we know that in this particular case, for example, when they come to these countries of the UK, different attitude to people from the Northern Hemisphere compared to the people from the Southern Hemisphere. So we have to be careful about what that does and how that impacts on the cohesion of the African people, the communication dynamics, the economic dynamics, and social political dynamics of the region. There's no easy answers. Let's wait and see. That's all we can say. Wait and see what happens. But my personal position on this is that I think it should just be voluntary. If those asylum seekers can be informed about what their potential opportunities are for them in Rwanda, and if they say they want to go there, if Rwanda itself has said yes, and the asylum seekers say yes, if it is voluntary, then that's fine. But this idea of forceful repatriation is the problem, and I don't think that will really fly. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time watching this. I really do appreciate it. Let me have your comments. Very nice to hear from you all. Really be happy to hear from the British people also about how they feel about this whole Rwanda immigration deal with the UK, and the idea of the UK ordering the judges to ignore certain parts of the UK law that is anchored under European human rights law. Also interested to hear from the Africans and from the Rwandans themselves, if possible, or Africans, East Africans especially, about what the impact of forced transfer of illegal migrants from the UK, what that might do to our region and how that might impact us and what we should do to mitigate any potential negative threats. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. This is not an easy subject to discuss. Hope you learned something. Remember to subscribe, like, and share. My subscriptions are going up. That makes me very happy, and as are my views. Please share my videos as much as you can, and also contribute to the discussion, to the debate, and let's have a lively debate. I wish you the best, and see you next time.